Okay, just bear with us for a couple of minutes, folks. We're just catching up a bit here. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. As required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making a decision on these applications. And something new administratively with respect to our meetings now, I'll add before we go any further. All guests, please take a seat in the first floor gallery. For everyone's information, we live stream the meeting on our YouTube channel, and the recording is available after the meeting. Because meetings are accessible to the public in all of these ways, video or audio recording by members of the public is not permitted in the council chambers, which this is. This is to ensure that all attendees and those who come to make a deputation feel at ease. So thank you. I would appreciate your cooperation in those matters. Not that we've ever had an issue, but we have to bring it to everyone's attention. So thank you for that. All right. I'll introduce the members of the committee, and I'll just do it in the order I have it here. I'm Mr. Robertson, and we've got Ms. Richardson, we've got Ms. Archer, Mr. Erickson, Mr. Strangway, and Mr. Finn. Alrighty. And staff present, we have Mr. Connolly, the Manager of Planning. We have Planner 2, Mr. Shahid, Planner 2, Ms. Evans. We've got our Secretary-Treasurer, Mr. Lahi, and Ms. Crockford, our Recording Secretary, and as well, Mr. McKinnon, Supervisor, Plans, Review, and Inspections. So, thank you, sir. All righty. Now, bear with me. We do our best to accommodate the folks that come in here, and what I mean by that is if normally, or with a lot of our applications, we don't have anyone that comes with respect to the application. But if someone does, be it the applicant or be it someone that wishes to speak to the application, then we do our very best to try and move you along so that you don't have to sit and be bored by us for the entire meeting. So what I'm going to do, so we're going to amend the agenda. I think what I'll do is we'll deal with 3.1.1, 3.1.2, and then we'll go to 3.1.5, 3.1.8, and 3.1.10. And if in that process I have missed anyone and you end up having to sit to the end of the meeting, I do apologize, but we do our very best to accommodate. So what I need now is a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Mr. Erickson, Mr. Strangway, any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Being none, the minutes from the last meeting, are there any comments or questions with respect to those minutes before I ask for a motion? All right, can I get a motion then? Ms. Archer, seconder. Mr. Finn, being no further comments or questions, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. For the benefit of everyone here and for those online, the committee will hear comments, gather information, and may ask questions to clarify statements made. The committee may ask and answer questions or redirect questions to the appropriate person. Please note that any information or comments given to the committee during this meeting, those are considered evidence. We will first hear from staff and then the applicant or his or her agent. We will then hear from any person in support of or from those who have questions, concerns, or are opposed to the application. Finally, the applicant or his or her agent will have an opportunity to respond to any of the statements made to the committee. If you wish to speak, and I will ask at some point during the application process, if you wish to speak, if you do, please raise your hand, and I will ask you to come up to the podium. I'm not sure what's happened up there. I guess, is there a mic there? Oh, it looks like it's down and out. Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. There's a button there, speak, I believe it says. There'll be a red light come on. So if you would do that, if you give us your name, and then I'll ask you to go ahead and just press that button, and then we will deal with it. Please stay at the podium when you're finished giving your presentation, because the committee may very well have questions of you. So if you would do that. We afford you 10 minutes to make your presentation. I don't think we've ever had anyone go that long, but if you find you just can't possibly get all that information in within those 10 minutes, and as I say, I'm not sure we've ever had anyone go that far, but if you feel that you have to have more time, I will ask the committee if they will afford you a couple more minutes. So, but as they say, I don't think we've ever gone there, but certainly we can deal with it if it becomes an issue. So, thank you. All right, moving right along. We're dealing with D20-2024-042, and this is 146 Brook Road, Geographic Township of Somerville. Ms. Evans, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Just before we get started, I'll just say I'm just getting over a bit of a cold, so hopefully my voice holds out for this, but I will definitely do my best here. The subject property is designated environmental protection under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan and is zoned limited service residential floodplain zone under the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45. While residential uses are not permitted within the environmental protection designation, as per policy 34.1, nothing in the official plan or the implementing zoning bylaw prevent the use of any land, building, or structure for a purpose prohibited by the official plan if the land, building, or structure was lawfully used for that purpose on the date this plan was adopted. The property is zoned to permit residential uses as well as accessory structures, and that zoning has been in place since at least 1978. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw, with the exception of the location of the proposed sunroom in relation to the flow of the Burnt River and the maximum size of an addition for habitable space for properties subject to floodplain provisions. The subject property is located east of the Burnt River in an area comprised of residential and agricultural uses. It currently contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 2017, a shed, and a treehouse. The proposal is to construct a sunroom attached to the existing dwelling. Relief is needed from the following provisions of the zoning bylaw, being section 18.26.4E of the zoning bylaw, which permits a maximum extension of 18 square meters for a building or structure containing habitable space for properties with a zoning that is subject to the floodplain symbol. The proposed sunroom is habitable space and is 36 square meters in size. Section 18.26.4E of the zoning bylaw permits the extension of a building or structure containing habitable space to be located on the downstream side of the existing building or structure for properties with zoning that is subject to the floodplain symbol. The proposed sunroom is located on the upstream side of the existing dwelling. This drawing shows what the proposed sunroom is to look like. As per policy 17.6 of the official plan, existing buildings and structures located in the floodplain can be expanded, enlarged, or altered subject to specified criteria. The proposed sunroom is not introducing new habitable space, as there is already a dwelling on the property. The sunroom is not anticipated to alter the displacement of flood water in a manner that would result in unacceptable off-site impact. Additionally, Kawartha Region Conservation Authority has confirmed that they have no concerns with the approval of the minor variance. The subject property is located east of Brook Road, separated from the Burnt River by the road and the properties fronting on the river. Additionally, the dwelling is located at a higher elevation on the subject property, with the land sloping away from the structure. These photos show the proposed location of the sunroom. The location of the dwelling and the proposed sunroom could mitigate the impact of the flood event, as the dwelling was recently constructed in compliance with the floodplain provisions of the zoning bylaw, and the new sunroom will be built at the same elevation. As the property already contains a dwelling, the proposed sunroom is not introducing any new habitable space where it does not already exist, and as such is not creating a new hazard. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Are there questions of the planner? Ms. Richardson, go ahead.
Through you, has the septic division approved this? It has an impact on it?
Through the chair, the septic division was circulated and they did provide comments to provide that they have no issue with the proposal.
Ms. Archer, go ahead.
Through you, please. The addition will be further away from the Burnt River than the existing house. Is that correct?
Through the chair, so it will be in line with the existing dwelling, so just off to the side. So that's the existing dwelling there, and then that's the sunroom, and then the river is like up here.
In the event it's no closer.
That's correct.
Anything further from committee? All right, being none. Is the applicant here? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? All right. Is there anyone here or online wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone here or online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee, where are we? Mr. Strangway.
As recommended by staff.
You have a seconder, Ms. Richardson. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. Okay, moving right along, we're now dealing with file number D20-2024-043, and this is 35 Old Mill Road, Geographic Township of Members. And again, Ms. Evans, go ahead.
Thank you. The subject property is designated rural under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan and is zoned Rural General Zone under the Township of Manvers Zoning Bylaw 87-06. Low-density residential uses, along with accessory uses, are anticipated within the rural designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw, with the exception of the maximum height for an accessory structure. The subject property is located on the west side of Old Mill Road in an area comprised primarily of larger agricultural lots with some smaller residential lots. The subject property is used for residential purposes and contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 2023. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the construction of a detached garage. Section 20.1C of the zoning bylaw permits a maximum height for accessory structures of 5 meters. The proposed height is 6 meters. The proposed garage is to be built into a slope, and as such, one end of the garage is taller than the other, and in these instances, the average height is used, being 6 meters in this case. Part of the garage is to be 1 story, and part is to be 2 stories. The 1-story area is to be used for vehicle parking. The lower story of the 2-story area is to be used for the storage of smaller vehicles and items including 4-wheelers, a boat, paddle boards, etc. The owner is downsizing from their previous home, and the additional storage will allow them to accommodate their belongings on the property. And then the upper level is to contain a woodworking shop. The photo on the left here shows the existing dwelling, and then the photo on the right shows the proposed location for the garage. These photos were taken from different locations on the property. The dwelling and the proposed garage are located in a cleared area on the property and are surrounded by mature vegetation. Additionally, the proposed garage is to be approximately 118 meters from the front lot line. This photo was taken next to the dwelling, looking down the driveway towards the road. The property slopes upwards from the front lot line to the location of the dwelling and the proposed garage. As such, the garage will not be visible from neighboring properties, and the vegetation along the front lot line as well as the upward slope will result in it being minimally visible from the road. It is not anticipated that the proposed garage will result in the dwelling becoming visually subordinate, nor will it change the overall character of the property. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Question to the planner? Being none. Is the applicant here or online? Wish to speak to the applicant? Yes. Do you wish to speak to it, ma'am? No? All right. Are there any questions of the committee of the applicant? All right. Being none. Is there anyone here or online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone here or online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? All right. Being none. Committee. Ms. Richardson, seconded by Mr. Finn. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. We're now dealing with file number D20-2024-046, and this is 2 Maryland Crescent, Geographic Township of Emily. Ms. Evans, go ahead, please.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned rural residential type 3 under the Township of Emily zoning bylaw 1996-30. Low-density residential uses and buildings and structures accessory to residential uses are permitted in the waterfront designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw, with the exception of the permitted location for an accessory structure and the minimum front yard setback. The subject property is located to the east of Pigeon Lake and currently contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 1973 and 2 sheds. The purpose of the application is to recognize one of the existing sheds located in the southeast corner of the property. Relief is required from the following provisions of the zoning bylaw, being section 3.1.2.1, which provides that an accessory structure shall only be erected in the interior side or rear yard. The shed is located in the front yard. And section 12.2.1.3a of the zoning bylaw, which requires a minimum front yard setback of 7.5 meters. The existing setback is 3 meters. In this sketch here, the front yard is represented in green. So the zoning bylaw defines the front lot line for a corner lot as the shorter lot line that abuts the street, and the front yard as the entire width of the lot between the front lot line and the closest main wall of the dwelling. As such, the lot line along Maryland Crescent is the front lot line, and the lot line along Cardinal Road is an exterior side lot line. And the shed is within the front yard. The photo on the left shows the dwelling with the shed that is the subject of the variance to the left of the dwelling, and the photo on the right is a closer look at the shed. As the front of the dwelling faces north and the shed is located in the southeast corner of the property, When viewing the property from the street, the shed appears to be located in the rear yard, and the shed remains visually subordinate to the residential use, and the property remains in keeping with the character of the area. Sufficient amenity space in all yards is maintained. Between the front lot line and the traveled portion of the street, there is an approximately 7-meter wide grassy boulevard, which contains a mature hedge, as seen in these photos. The location of the shed is not anticipated to impact traffic, maintenance, or sight lines. Additionally, the vegetation provides both a visual and physical buffer between the shed and the traveled portion of the road. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the planner? Ms. Archer, go ahead.
Through you, please, when was this shed built?
Through the chair, I can take a look at the application form if you'll just give me a moment, but I do believe the applicant is here as well and may be able to clarify.
Right. Anything further of the planner? All right. It would appear we need the applicant, if you're here, to come forth. Can you find the button there, sir? There, you got it. And your name is?
Cody Koopmans.
All right. First of all, do you wish to speak to the application?
I can answer any questions that are readily available.
Ms. Archer, go ahead.
Could you tell me, please, when this shed was built?
The shed was built. It was a prefab shed. It was dropped off. It's been there for 5 months now. Yeah.
Any further questions of the applicant? All right. Thank you for that, sir.
Thank you very much.
If you could turn that off, I would appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application? Okay. Nothing like a little interference. All right. Committee, where are we? Ms. Archer. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson? Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. We are now dealing with file number D20-2024-049, and this is 62 Lagoon Drive, former village of Fenelon Falls. Ms. Evans, you are a busy lady today. Go ahead.
Thank you. The subject property is designated residential under the Fenelon Falls Secondary Plan and is zoned Residential Type 1 under the Village of Fenelon Falls Zoning Bylaw 89-25. Under the Secondary Plan, a variety of dwelling types, as well as accessory buildings and structures, are permitted. The property is within the floodplain hazard, and as such, an environmental impact study or other study, as determined to be appropriate by the city in consultation with partner agencies, shall be required. The proposal is to continue a residential use that has existed since at least 1958. The proposed dwelling improves upon the setbacks of the existing dwelling. Kawartha Region Conservation Authority has provided that they have no concerns with the approval of the minor variance and that a permit has already been issued from their office. As such, staff feel that it is reasonable to not require a study and that the proposal is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the secondary plan. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw with the exception of the minimum rear yard setback. The subject property is within the former village of Fenelon Falls, located at the end of a peninsula along the Fenelon River. It currently contains a one-story single detached dwelling constructed in 1958 and a boathouse. The proposal is to demolish the existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling. Relief is required from section 4.3.3C4 of the zoning bylaw, which requires a minimum rear yard setback of 15 meters. The proposed setbacks are 12 meters from the screened porch and 14.9 meters from the dwelling. These elevation drawings show what the new dwelling is to look like. And this photo shows the existing dwelling. The existing dwelling is approximately 130 square meters in size, while the proposed dwelling is to be approximately 214 square meters in size. These photos show the yard where the reduced rear yard setback is to be, as well as the shoreline of the property. As the R1 zone does not actually have a water setback provision, in this case, the rear yard setback functions as a water setback. The proposed dwelling is to be set back further from the shoreline than the existing dwelling. Impacts to water body health or stormwater infiltration are not anticipated. And the dwelling is located at a higher elevation than the shoreline as the property slopes down towards the water, potentially mitigating impacts of a flood event. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems, providing that a sewage system permit and detailed proposal have not yet been submitted for review. So the supervisor requested a condition be placed on the minor variance to require approval under the Ontario Building Code pertaining to private sanitary waste disposal, which has been included as condition 3 in the report. No other comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Questions of the planner? Being none. Is the applicant here or online? Yes, sir. Do you wish to speak to the application? All right. Are there any questions of the applicant from the committee? Looks like it's your easy day, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. You best come forward, sir. I almost got it out. All right. Yep. Could you give us your name, sir?
It's Adam Smith.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Erickson.
Through the chair, did you ask anybody's opinion as to whether or not you should move the building or site the building where you did?
I cited the building in the best possible spot to minimize going into any of the to try and avoid doing this process. That's why I'm only 0.1 of a meter from the actual building to the setback. And it's just the screened-in porch which encroaches into the rear yard setback, and that will not be a full foundation. That will be on sonotubes.
Perhaps, Mr. Erickson, in all fairness to the applicant, is there a bit of a lead up to where that question came from?
Just where it says because of the rock, that's why they moved the building over. So I was just wondering if anybody at the city was consulted or gave an opinion.
I've got 8 inches of topsoil, and then the whole area is rock. I don't know.
Maybe we'll go to the planner. Are you aware of any issues, Ms. Evans, with respect to that?
Through the chair, no, we don't typically give that kind of consultation as to where it should be cited unless we would see some kind of glaring issue. But it's cited in terms of the water setback, a better location than where the existing dwelling is today. So the siting has been improved upon what exists now.
All right, thank you.
As Mr. Finn just pointed out to me, ignore those questions.
Ignore those questions. All right. All right. Is there anything further of the applicant? Thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee, where are we? Mr. Strangway.
As recommended by staff.
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Finn. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. Your application is approved, sir. All right, thank you. All right. Better put my glasses on. We're now dealing with D20-2024-051, and this is 30 South Fork Drive, Geographic Township of Somerville. Mr. Shahid, your turn, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject application seeks to construct a new two-story detached garage. The property currently contains a two-story dwelling, detached garage, shed, and a trailer. The existing garage and trailer will be removed as part of the application. To provide some context, the property owners are intending to make the subject property become their permanent season-round home residence. As a result, they're looking to store and park many of their items within an upgraded enclosed space. The applicant indicated the proposed garage will be used to park and store multiple vehicles, a boat with a ski lift, a riding lawnmower, and other various items. The number of structures will be reduced as both the trailer and existing garage will be replaced by a single structure. Relief is requested from both accessory structure lot coverage and height of the garage. The property is surrounded on all sides by the existing vegetation, which effectively screens the property from neighbors and a majority of the road. I should note that the existing vegetation will not be impacted by the proposal. As seen in Appendix D of the report, the proposed garage is split with a 1- and 2-story component. The image to the right on the slide attempts to show how the structure would be viewed from the road. In the image, the street view elevation is very roughly layered on top of the photo taken from the street. In this graphic, you can see that the second-story portion would be covered by the existing vegetation fronting the property. The garage is oriented in a manner that the tall side will be behind and guarded by the existing vegetation. As a result, the 2-story component will not largely be visible from the road. The existing vegetation will also ensure the structure isn't visible from the neighboring properties. Although the garage is greater in height than the existing dwelling from finished grade, the house will appear taller than the garage when on site. This is because the house is situated on a higher elevation, almost like a hill, making the house appear taller, whereas the proposed garage is to be situated on a flat portion of the property. In terms of agency comments received after the report, the KRCA commented that they have no concerns with the proposal and that the applicant has already obtained a permit from them. In conclusion, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of the planner? Mr. Finn, go ahead.
Through the chair, do you have the size of the present residential dwelling?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the size of the current dwelling, so the ground floor area, is 152.5 square meters.
So this proposed garage being 202.4 square meters is larger than the existing dwelling?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yep, it is.
Okay. Does it not suggest perhaps then that the coverage of 11.37% being higher than the 8% required is not minor in nature?
Through you, Mr. Chair, for the reasons that I wrote in the report, I do believe that it is minor in nature.
Okay. Are the other residential dwellings in the area consistent with the same size as the residential building on this property?
Through you, Mr. Chair. In terms of height, yeah, they do range from 1 to 2 stories. And in terms of the sizes, I didn't check, but I can quickly take a look now to see the size of the surrounding dwellings. We don't have that information promptly available, so we use a third-party resource, but I can definitely take a look at that.
Thank you.
I'm assuming, Mr. Finn, your questions surround, does this building overwhelm the primary residence?
Exactly, and the area, if the other residential buildings in the area are the same nature of the existing one on this property.
Can you give us some information then, Mr. Shahid, on that? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee member. Quickly looking through here on aerial imagery, it looks here that there are various other garages along South Fork Drive that are about the same, if not equal or greater in size than the proposed garage size. So I can give you that in terms of context. In terms of the size of the dwellings, it seems like they all range. Some are larger, some are smaller along the road. Hope that clarifies.
Mr. Finn?
I'm just looking at the aerial photograph, which came with the material we have before us, and the residences on either side of the subject property appear to be equal or smaller, and I don't see any similar garages on those properties.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, the aerial imagery is a bit zoomed in, but if we would zoom further out and would look at, for example, I believe it was 125 South Fork Drive, 8 South Fork Drive, those are just some examples of properties with large garages in the front yard.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I guess just to follow up that, Mr. Shahid, so you're content that the primary residence remains primary with respect to the lot situation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I am.
All right, thank you. Any further questions of the planner? All right. Is the applicant here? Do you wish to speak to the application, sir? Please. If you turn your mic on there, if you would. And your name, sir?
My name's John Piper.
All right, go ahead, sir.
The neighbors, depends which way you look at it, but the neighbors to the right, their house is about a 3,500 square foot house, so it's significantly larger than ours. And the neighbors on the next side are a bit smaller than our house. So there certainly is some variance. And further down the road, there's other people that have similar garages that are detached as the one that I'm proposing. So, I mean, that's sort of what it's like in the neighborhood. Some places are a bit more built up than others. We are planning on living there full time, and as such, we seem to have a lot of stuff. You know, cars and our boat, and of course we moved from a full house full of furniture to a full cottage full of furniture. So, you know, let alone the kids' stuff that they never take. So, we would appreciate building a larger garage. The ones we have now is very small, and it's primarily full of my son's gym equipment.
I actually can relate to your situation there, so, yeah. All right. Comment or questions of the applicant? All right, being none, thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? Support of the application? Being none. Committee, where are we? Ms. Richardson.
As recommended by staff.
All right, do I have a seconder, Ms. Archer? Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. Your application is approved, sir. Thank you. Now we go backwards. And we're dealing with file number D20-2024-044, and this is 10 Sunrise Crescent, Geographic Township of Fenland. Mr. Shahid, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject application is to recognize an existing additional residential unit, or more commonly referred to as an ARU. The subject property currently contains a two-story dwelling, a detached residential unit, and 2 sheds. According to the applicant, in 2003, a detached garage was constructed and at some point converted into a living space by previous owners. The new and current owners are now seeking to register the change of use on the property and to recognize the ARU and to be able to continue the use lawfully. The structure that will be registered as the ARU is 93 square meters in size, while the deemed primary residence is 97 square meters in size. As seen on the image on the slide, the ARU and primary residence are connected by a breezeway but would not be considered attached structures under the zoning bylaw. The structures and the use are permitted, but the lot is considered undersized for an ARU and lot coverage is exceeded. Firstly, looking at lot size requirements for ARUs, the lot is existing and is similar in size to the various lots in the area. The ARU is an existing structure not proposed to go through any expansion or enlargement. The intention of this provision here is to ensure that the private services will be able to support both the ARU and primary residents. This was discussed with the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems, who advised that there may be some changes required in terms of the number of bedrooms and plumbing fixtures. And the supervisor commented that these modifications can and will be done to her satisfaction after the processing of the minor variance. And this has been ensured through condition number 2, and the revised list has been provided to committee members. Moving on to lot coverage, although the accessory structure lot coverage is exceeded here, it is important to note that no new structures are being proposed and that the property complies with the maximum permitted amount of accessory structures. The primary residence is greater in height and is the first and most upfront structure viewed from the street, maintaining visual dominance and ensuring the ARU is a subordinate use. The property is well guarded by dense hedge, so any visual impacts are mitigated and all setbacks or yards are in compliance. In terms of agency comments received after the report, the KRCA commented that they have no concern with the proposal and that the applicant will be required to obtain a permit from them. A public member, Ryan DeBoer, property owner of 15 Sunrise Crescent, commented that he has lived in the community for 10 years, complimented the property's aesthetic, and stated he has no objections to the variance. In conclusion, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the revised conditions provided to committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Strangway, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just looking at the diagram and looking at the ARU at 93 square meters and the primary dwelling at 97, it appears that the ARU is larger than the primary dwelling. Is that correct? Even checking with my calculator, I find the ARU has a much greater number of square feet.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the sketch is a bit skewed, and I did indicate that to the applicant, but that's why I have the size measurements there. So the correct ground floor area or size of the ARU is 93 square meters, and that would be according to, based on the information the applicant had provided to me. So the 93 and 97, as shown on the report, is the correct sizes.
So what's the problem? Is it the measurements? Because when you, of course, take 13.7 meters and 9.8 meters, that comes out to a lot more than the 93. So is that the incorrect part on the diagram?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that what happened was that there's a deck attached to that ARU, so they might have included that deck size there. That's probably the reason why it's greater. But the reason why the entire sketch, in terms of like when we look at the sketch, the primary dwelling looks to be smaller, just like looking at it up front, but it's actually larger. And we can even see that here on the picture here as well, or on the aerial imagery that's on the report.
So, are there any issues with an ARU being larger than a primary dwelling? Or is my question not relevant in light of what you've indicated to us?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, an ARU cannot be larger than the primary dwelling, but in this case, the primary dwelling is larger than the ARU.
Okay.
Mr. Finn, go ahead.
Through the chair, just continuing that discussion, on the same sketch, you have the accessory structure lot coverage, 157.68 meters square. How do you come up with that figure?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be the sheds, that would be the ARU, so that would be all accessory structures there.
And you'd be using the 93 square meters for the ARU?
Correct.
Thank you.
Further excuse me, further questions to the planner? Ms. Archer? Excuse me.
I think I understand how you explained it, but so these measurements of 13.7 meters and 9.8 meters are not, they were given to us by the applicant. That's not ones that you went out and measured?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, we don't go out and measure, so yeah, these were given to us by the applicant.
He actually gave us figures that make the ARU larger than the dwelling.
Yes, but the application form that he provided indicated the correct sizing, and that's what I had confirmed with him to make sure that it's actually 93 square meters, and that's why I had to make sure that it was detailed as so in the sketch.
Yeah, it's anything further of the planner? Mr. Richardson, go ahead.
Since Appendix C, sorry, through you, since Appendix C is going to be registered on title, should it not be accurate information that's attached and registered?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just give me 1 second here. Through you, Mr. Chair. So it's just that sketch, that measurement that's provided on the sketch, that includes the decks. So it's not that it's inaccurate. It's not showing the building footprint accurately, but it includes the size of the decks. So in terms of actual, like, the building space taken up, in terms of lot coverage, that would be accurate. And also the sketch shows the size, like it details the size of the ARU and the primary residence. So I would be in the opinion that it's good.
Further questions? You'll get your chance, sir. Please relax, all right? Anything further from the committee? No? Mr. Conley, I have a question to you. And I realize this was a build, and it was a conversion that happened, and I'm not faulting anyone here. I realize I'm just asking. it seems rather extreme, I guess, when I look at this. The bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 4,000 square meters for an ARU, and yet we're allowing one with 1,254.53 square meters. And then I look at the next one, and we are a maximum lot coverage of 8%, and we're looking at 12.57% here. If this were a new build, would we actually allow that? Because the numbers seem extreme to me.
Mr. Sheehy, do you have anything you want to add to that before I answer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, we judge each application on a case-by-case basis, and I can't say like right off the top of my head, because there would be different factors I would look into. Yeah, I don't want to like set a precedent and say that it would be that we wouldn't allow for it or we would allow for it. Obviously, it would require an application, but I don't want to say like right away that if we would allow for it or not.
No, and I understand that each case is looked at within its own parameters or the merits, but we're talking, what, 3-4 times the size here for the building, and, well, not double, but almost double. I guess it just leaves me in a bit of a quandary as to, those are extreme numbers in my opinion, but that's why I asked, because I'm wondering, and I realize this existed, so perhaps that is a mitigating factor, but if it were a new build, it seems to me we probably would say no, would we not?
Through your chair, yeah, that's exactly. I think the confusing issue here is that it is existing, and the whole reason for being in front of the Committee of Adjustment is to recognize the fact that it doesn't fit tidily within the parameters, the setbacks, and the size is extreme. And the points in the discussion with respect to an ARU not exceeding the size of a primary residence is a point well taken. But again, absolutely hard to go back in time to say what this would look like if it was a fresh building permit application, what would be allowed. We would be applying the zoning which we would typically have in order to be, and it would be on the date in which it's being applied for. So that would apply as to, would change the parameters, the size and scope of the building being applied for. In this case, we're looking through the rearview mirror and sort of trying to apply current logic with something that doesn't really fit comfortably, and that's why it's before the committee.
And thank you for that. I do appreciate that. Mr. Shahid, the only thing I would say is that the diagram on Appendix C, and I heard the questions that surrounded it, and I agree with the questions, because if you look at the two areas, the existing ARU and the primary dwelling, just from a looking at it, it looks like it could be almost double the size of the primary dwelling. So I'm just wondering, and I'm just asking, was it necessary to show the existing ARU with that size? Because it's deceptive just from a visual aspect of it. And I think that probably generated some of the questions as a result. So I guess what I'm asking is, in another application, would it be possible to, what is it? Now, did I hear you say it's larger because you're showing the deck area as well? Was that true or not?
Yeah, that is true. And I did indicate to the applicant that the sketch that was provided is skewed. Like the existing ARU here appears to look larger than the primary dwelling on the sketch. Yeah, and it was indicated to them that would impact how the application is reflected and how it's taken in by committee and the public. But they decided to proceed with this sketch. So
I ask that maybe in the future, if we try to make it a little more, what's the word I'm looking for, proportionate? Mr. Connolly?
If I may, Chair, exactly. I think what we're what's confusing this is the footprint of the actual coverage of the property, which includes things that aren't in the consideration of what the actual size of the living area, the habitable space. So absolutely, you know, we work with the sketches. I don't think we demand that anyone who comes forward has to use an engineering, site design or an architect. But that said, that's where there's absolutely a gap here, and I appreciate your comments. And in the future, we'll make sure that one, that the calculations reflect what's on the ground, and if there's anything or any variation, that'll be taken up into the idea of what's the footprint of the building, the habitable space, versus the actual footprint on the ground of the accessory structures like decks or anything else attached to it.
That would be very much appreciated, sir. Thank you for that. Mr. Erickson?
So we're looking at number 10, Sunrise. If you look on the aerial photo, number 12, if you put that house, garage, and boat house together, that's basically the same type of massing that's going on there. So, I don't know, is number 10 so far out there? I don't know. I don't know what's in the next door boathouse and garage. Are there any living quarters? But still, on a massing basis, they look about comparable.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. Did you have a question on that as well, or no?
I just wanted to point it out.
Yeah, no, thank
But in taking your suggestion for Sunrise in the future, other property owners may get the same idea that they can do as much massing as those two properties.
Well, I think Mr. Connolly, and thank you, Mr. Connolly, for that, has indicated that we'll try to be just a little bit more careful with that in the future. So, further questions of Mr. Shahid, or? All right, being none, is the applicant here? Do you wish to speak to it, sir? Please. And your name, sir?
My name is Si Wen.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm the applicant. Just wanted to address the comment on the, I guess, the appearance of the size of the ARU compared to the main dwelling. As Mr. Shahid said, there is a large deck on the ARU, which makes it appear to be bigger on the footprint drawing. The second thing is that the ARU is not rectangular, so it's kind of octagonal, I think, at the back of it. So when I drew the footprint, I kind of drew the enclosing box, which will make it look bigger than it actually is. And then the third thing is that the second floor of the ARU, there is just a loft. It's kind of triangular. There is just one small bedroom. It's the area of the second floor is much smaller than the first floor. I think that should answer the questions of the earlier.
And thank you for that, sir. Just remain, there may be, is there a question of the applicant? Anyone? Mr. Strangway?
Do you know offhand what the exact measurements are of the ARU without the deck?
It should be the number that's written on the, I think it's 93. It's 93 for the ARU and 97 for the main dwelling, maybe.
So those are the numbers we're talking about on Appendix C, Mr. Strangway?
Yes. No, I was just wondering if we had the exact measurements of the ARU less the measurements of the deck.
Mr. Shahid, would you have that information?
Through you, Mr. Chair, like in terms of dimensions? No, I don't have the dimensions without the deck.
Yeah, it's hard to get the exact dimensions because it's not a rectangle. It's you know what I mean? It's like octagonal. It's irregular. It's irregular, exactly.
Thank
Mr. Connolly?
If I may, Chair, it's hard to tell when you look at it, but if you zoom in on the aerial photograph, what you'll see is the deck is not completely rectangular, is squared in. It has that irregular shape, like half a pentagon or half a hexagon type of thing. So you'll see that it, unlike the sketch which squared it off in rectangular, there are actually two triangles which are far beyond that. And then again, the point taken, as the applicant indicated, that the second floor is a loft, smaller footprint than the main floor, but notwithstanding, again, all the better that when we have applications coming forward, the sketches do a better job of representing what's on the ground. So the comments of the committee are well taken.
Thank you, sir, for that. All right. Any further questions of the applicant? All right. Did you wish to say anything further, sir? No. Thank you very much. All right. Is there anyone here or online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone here or online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. And I believe we have an amended, it'll be an amended motion because the conditions have changed somewhat. So, Ms. Archer?
Through you, please, why did we change the condition? I must have slept through that. I
Mr.
missed it.
Shahid?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's just for that, the septic condition, though.
No, sorry, it's condition 3.
Could you be a little more specific, Ms. Archer?
Unless I'm looking at the wrong one. I don't think I am. Condition 3 on the initial one is 24 months, and now on the amended, it's 8 months.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that was, usually when something's being constructed, we give it 24 months, but this is a structure that's already built. So this is just generally, we give them 8 months to do so, and this has been worked through across other departments to confirm that that is enough time to work with the building and septic and Kawartha Conservation. So we reduce it to 8 months because the structure's already built, so they don't need 24 months to build the structure and go through the permitting process.
All right, then I need a motion as amended. Ms. Archer? Do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson? Any further comments or questions with respect to the amended motion on the floor? Oh, Mr. Strangwick?
I'm going to support this motion, but I'm going to also indicate that I'm not real comfortable with it. We've looked at the measurements and so on, and I can speculate from the drawing that it is this size, but it's a little misleading to the committee, certainly what we're dealing with there, and I'm glad it'll be dealt with in future. Thank you.
No, and I totally agree with you. So, Mr. Erickson?
A clarifying question. Could the outline of the ARU, if it includes the deck, could that portion be built up later? Because it's being approved as the ARU itself. It's not specifying there's a deck there. This is saying that plan shows a whole building.
Is that to Mr. Shahid? Mr. Shahid, do you wish to
Mr.
respond?
Chair. No, that wouldn't be, because it still says the 93 square meters, so it would still have to, it wouldn't be allowed to expand that ARU, and it's also mentioned in the report that the ARU is not going through any expansion or enlargement.
Mr. Richardson, do I see a question there?
So is the deck included in the 93 square meters, or is it not?
Mr. Shahid?
Through you, no, it's not included.
Further?
I'm just with Mr. Strangway and his comments.
Ms. Archer? No, I thought I saw a question there, but all right. All right, are there any further comments or questions with respect to the amended motion on the floor? All right, all those in favor? And that carries. Your application is approved, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Conley, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, just having listened to this discussion and the questions, I absolutely apologize that on my part that it wasn't clearer than it is. It obviously led to a number of misunderstandings and also some concern that this would be expanded in some way in the future. We'll make sure that any drawings that happen are as detailed as possible. In some cases, what happens is the disconnect between the sketches that were provided as well as the detailed information that's there, but we'll make sure that that's provided. And I do appreciate the comments and the lack of clarity that perhaps was there. And I take responsibility for bringing that forward in the future.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Alrighty. We're now dealing with file number D20-2024-045, and this is 70 Four Points Road, Geographic Township of Ops. Mr. Shahid, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property currently contains a two-story dwelling, a detached garage, 2 sheds, an above-ground swimming pool, and 2 car canopy shelters. The subject application is to construct a new detached garage in place of the existing car canopy shelters. As a result, the 2 car shelters will be removed. Relief is required for the front yard setback from the garage. To help provide some on-site context, you can see on the slide the existing detached garage and the 2 car canopy shelters. The picture is taken from the road, and you can see how far set back the existing garage is from the road. The front yard setback from the existing garage is 5.48 meters, and the proposed detached garage will not further encroach into the setback. The proposed detached garage will simply provide an additional enclosed space for personal parking and storage without reducing any of the setbacks. The applicant mentioned this enclosed space is needed in order to protect the vehicle from all the debris propelled from cars traveling along the gravel road. As seen on the aerial imagery, the property is almost entirely surrounded by dense hedge of vegetation, with the only structures being visible from the road being the structures shown on the slide. The proposed garage, the only structures that are visible from the road is the existing garage and the 2 car canopy shelters. The proposed garage, if moved further away from the road, would require the removal of the existing vegetation and major alteration to grade as the property varies in topography. Additionally, with the current proposed location of the detached garage, the view from the road will be uniform in comparison to if the garage was pushed back and their distance from the road varied. In terms of agency comments received after the report, the KRCA commented that they have no concerns with the application and that the applicant has already obtained a permit from them. In conclusion, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shahid. Questions?
Please, to Mr. Shahid, could you tell me, please, when the existing shed or garage was built?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I believe it's in the report as well, if I didn't miss it, but it's 1983, so it was built the same time as the house.
So it preceded the bylaw?
The existing detached garage? Yes, the bylaw was passed in 1993.
Right. Ms. Richardson, go ahead.
Through you, where is the new garage being constructed?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the new garage is being constructed right next to the existing garage. And I can show you from the street. So where those 2 car canopy shelters are, it's being constructed right next to it, about 2 meters away from that existing detached garage.
Thank you.
All right. Further questions of the planner?
Looking at the diagram that was provided, I'm back to the size of the diagram. It looks like the proposed new garage is about half the size of the old garage. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the proposed new garage is it's an entrance for only 1 car. So it's not, whereas the existing is 2.
Thank you.
Anything further from committee? All right, being none. Is the applicant here online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application?
Yes, I'm here, but I'm good, thank you.
What is your name, sir?
Trevor McIntyre.
All right, go ahead, sir.
I just said I was just saying I was here if you needed any questions asked or answered.
All right, well, we'll try that. Are there any questions of the applicant? It would appear that you're safe, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? All right, being none, committee, where are we? Mr. Finn? As printed. And seconded by Ms. Archer. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that your application is approved, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're now dealing with file number D20-2024-047, and this is 88 Ballsover Road, Geographic Township of Eldon. Ms. Evans, go ahead.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan and is zoned tourist commercial C3 zone under the Township of Eldon zoning bylaw 94-14. Low-density residential uses, buildings and structures accessory to residential uses, tourist resorts, and camps are permitted in the waterfront designation under the official plan, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. The subject property is located within the Wellhead Protection Area C for the Western Trent Municipal Drinking Water System, and therefore a Section 59 notice must be issued by the risk management official. Condition 3 has been included to ensure the Section 59 notice is obtained. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw, with the exception of the minimum exterior side yard setback. The subject property is located at the southern end of Canal Lake. It contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 1986 and 2 rental cottages constructed in 2019. Just a note that the air photo was taken in 2018, so the rental cottages aren't there. The surrounding uses include residential, commercial, community facility, and agricultural. The proposal is to recognize an existing deficient setback between the rental cottage on the eastern side of the property and the exterior lot line. Section 16.2.1.3C of the zoning bylaw requires a minimum exterior side yard setback of 25 meters. The existing setback is 12.8 meters. These elevations show what the rental cottages look like, as do these photos. The proposal is to continue to use the property as a cottage establishment. The property owners reside in the single detached dwelling full-time and then operate the property as a 4-season establishment, accommodating the traveling and vacationing public by renting out these 2 cottages. The exterior side yard setback is measured from a road allowance that abuts the east side of the subject property. The road allowance is a grassy area and can be seen in the photo on the left. The road allowance is unopened and is not used to access any adjacent properties. And on site, the road allowance just appears to be an extension of the lawn of the subject property. As such, there's no existing traffic or road maintenance, which could result in land use conflicts with the rental cottage. The photo on the right shows the rental cottage with the deficient setback, and that red line is just meant to represent the approximate distance to the exterior lot line. Hypothetically, if the road allowance was ever opened and constructed, the 12.8 meter setback would be sufficient spatial separation between the rental cottage and the traveled portion of the road, and there are no anticipated impacts that would result to sightlines or snow storage. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Questions of the planner? Ms. Richardson, go ahead.
Through you, since this cottage already exists, why do they need 24 months with the, as indicated in relief number 2?
Through the chair, I'll ask the applicant to speak further to that a bit, but I know there was some pretty substantial work that needed to be done to bring the cottages up to building code. They were constructed by a previous owner, so now this current owner is working to do that work to bring them fully up to code. So there's just a little bit of extra time to get that all sorted.
Further questions of the planner? Mr. Erickson, go.
Through the chair, so each of these structures has a dock that they can each use, since there are 3 docks on the property?
Through the chair, I don't know the format of what the rental cabins each get, but maybe the applicant can speak to the docks and who gets to use which one.
That seems appropriate that we ask the applicant. Any further? Yes, Ms. Archer?
I just don't, okay, Appendix A. It looks more to me that, I know you say there is an on-open road allowance, but it looks more like a right-of-way. Are we positive it's an on-open right-of-way? Or on-open road allowance?
Through the chair, yeah. So if you just take a look at the survey here, it's labeled as Talbot Street. So it goes up this way, and then in Appendix A, too far, you can see it kind of goes up here and then kind of ends.
It also looks like it goes to the left as well, so it makes me think it might be a right-of-way for people in the back lots to access the river.
Through the chair, I don't know the legalities of who has access to it, but the rental cottage is not on the road allowance. It's 12.8 meters from the road allowance, and I'm comfortable that that distance would not impede anybody who may have legal access to it. I'm just not sure on, we would have to do a title search to know that.
All right. Any further questions of the planner? All right. Is the applicant here or online? Does the applicant wish to speak to it? And your name, sir?
Linton Meyer. I'm the property owner.
All right, go ahead, sir.
You had a couple of questions regarding why the 24 months. The property was purchased back in 2020 with the 2 cottages already in place, and we discovered that the septic system was not working properly, so we installed a new septic system using permits and so on. And when the permits were about to be closed, it was discovered that the cottages did not have building permits. So we've been working with our title insurer to upgrade the cottages to meet the requirements of the building code, and through that we've applied for building permits.
All right. Did you wish to speak further to it?
No, I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. And Mr. Erickson, go ahead.
Wondering, does each structure have use of their own dock?
Yes, that is how we position it, so that when we rent the cottages, each of the cottagers each one basically uses one of the docks.
And just for future reference, because the short-term rental bylaw was just put into effect, would you have had to have a business license to operate these cottages or the cottage in the past?
We have been operating them. I'm not sure how to respond to that, sorry.
Through the chair, because the property has commercial zoning, it's zoned to permit a cottage establishment, which this complies with the definition of that. So it's not a short-term rental, like if you were going to rent your cottage or you had an ARU on your property and you were renting that as a short-term rental. It's a tourist establishment as per the tourist commercial zoning that applies to the property.
Thank you for that, because that was going to be my question. What is it, a short-term rental? But it's not. So, all right. Any further from committee? All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? Support of the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Ms. Richardson. Okay, you're making the motion. Mr. Strangway, you're second? All right. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? That being the case, all in favor? And that carries. Your application is approved, sir.
Thank you.
File number D20-2024-048, and this is 91 Folsom Crescent, Geographic Township of Carden. Mr. Shahid, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we get into this application, I want to bring up that the notice circulated indicated that the interior side yard requires relief, which is correct. However, not both side yards require relief. The required side yard setbacks here are 3 meters on one side and 1.2 meters on the other side. As a result, only the northern side yard, shown on the sketch as 2.12 meters, is the only side that requires relief. The southern side yard, identified as 1.90 meters, does not require relief and is in compliance. Overall, it is staff opinion that the application can proceed, but I'll turn this over to you, Mr. Chair, to determine if committee is okay with proceeding.
All right, committee, where are we? Any questions or comments of Mr. Shahid? Ms. Ar-
in my opinion, they circulated we needed 2, we only need 1, so it's better than the other way around, so I think we should proceed.
Right. Mr. Connolly, do you have any comments?
Through you, Chair, I don't disagree with that logic. That's why we're comfortable with it proceeding, but I do bow to the committee as to how it wishes to proceed.
Right. Committee, anything further comment-wise? Can I see a show of hands then as to proceeding? All right, everyone's in favor, then go ahead, Mr. Shahid.
Thank you. The subject application is to recognize the existing and newly constructed single detached dwelling situated on the property. To help provide some context, the property is located in a neighborhood that is largely developed with low-density residential dwellings. This property had remained vacant for some time, but plans were submitted to develop this property with a single-story bungalow. The dwelling was constructed in December 2023, and the as-built plan submitted to our building division differed from the original plans submitted. These plans showed a different side yard setback, which the applicant explains was due to rock features they discovered, and chose to shift the development north in order to avoid any on-site potential rock blasting. As a result, the dwelling constructed now proposes a smaller side yard setback on the northern side. Despite this deficiency, 2.12 meters of space is still provided in the northern side yard. As seen in the left image on the slide, this provides adequate passageway for maintenance purposes. Additionally, the subject dwelling and the neighboring dwelling at 93 Folsom Crescent to the north, which they share the northern lot line here, the dwellings aren't directly located adjacent to one another, and this ensures that any potential privacy issues and changes to views are mitigated, and all other provisions are complied with, including all required yards and lot coverage. Regarding comments received from the public after the report, comment was received from Robert Lindsay, property owner of 89 Folsom Crescent, which is the property south of the subject property. The public member had concerns regarding the southern side yard setback, which abuts their property, and property infringement concerns during the completed construction process. According to the public member, they had been communicating these concerns to city staff since the summer of 2023. In terms of their concerns regarding the side yard setback, it must be understood here that the southern side yard setback does not require relief. The reduced northern side yard setback, which is the side yard being discussed in this variance, is not anticipated to impact drainage. The required southern side yard setback is 1.2 meters, and the proposed southern side yard setback is 1.9 meters. As such, the side yard isn't applicable to this variance, and in comparison, originally the plans that were submitted detailed a 1.3 meter southern side yard setback, but as a result of shifting the entire development north, away from 89 Folsom, the southern side yard was actually increased from 1.3 to the now existing 1.9. Therefore, the southern side yard is not in question here and exceeds the required 1.2 meters. Regarding the issues during the construction process, this wouldn't be something the planning division is or was involved with. Other than that, no other major comments received from the public. All in all, the deficient side yard setback continues to maintain the general intent of the zoning bylaw. And in conclusion, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the revised conditions provided to the committee.
Questions of the planner? Ms. Richardson?
Through you, was a building permit issued for the construction of this home?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that would be a better question for our building division here.
In fact, I was going to go to Mr. McKinnon anyway, because we're hearing that comments were made, I guess, during the building process, starting in 2023, by the complainant with respect to some of the issues, so maybe you could speak to that as well.
Through you, your chair, I'm personally not aware of any complaints that came through to me. I could check with my staff and find out. Unfortunately, I'm personally not aware. As for the building permit, there was a building permit taken out, and through the lot drainage and grading process, that was how this was discovered, that the building was constructed in a different location than it was originally proposed.
Is it not normal for the applicant to then seek approval for relocating the building?
I believe, through you, your chair, that's why we're here today. Because it was discovered through the process, through our lot drainage and grading process that we have in place, and it was discovered at that time.
Sorry, but my point is they did the relocation without checking with the building division first?
Through you, your chair, I'm not the inspector on this project, so I'm not exactly aware of when it was discovered. To restate that, we discovered it when the as-built lot drainage and grading plan came in. So that's all I can really state on that one.
Just indicate to committee that as it relates to enforcement issues, we do not have a mandate to explore those issues, so that doesn't really relate to the application that we're looking at here, so thank you for that. Anything further? Yes, Mr. Finn?
And thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I know the southern setback is not an issue, but perhaps you could explain the statement in your material that the setback required is 1.2 meters plus 1 meter for each additional partial story, and that's how you first got to the issue, I guess, that the setback was not sufficient. Do I take it that statement is now incorrect?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this zoning bylaw is interesting in its wording. So the way that the zoning bylaw words it is exactly like that: 3 meters on one side, 1.2 meters on the other side, plus 1 meter for each additional or partial story above the first. Now, other zoning bylaws, they would consider a basement walkout an additional story. So the 2-story setbacks would apply. In this case, the definition of story did say that a basement is included as a story, but it's the definition of first story that changed the interpretation here. Is because the definition of first story here is the lowest story of a building closest to finished grade, having its ceiling 2 meters or more above the finished grade. So for that reason, the 1-story setbacks actually apply, because the first story is as seen here. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions of the planner? Ms. Archer, go ahead.
This is me showing that I'm not really in tune with what's happening in the city. I thought we were getting a comprehensive zoning bylaw that all townships former townships would be the same. Where are we with that?
Good luck.
Through your chair, how much time do you have? So as you know, council on May 21st had received the rural zoning bylaw, which was the amalgamation of the 14 previous zoning bylaws to consolidate it exactly as you said, to have it all there.
I'm hearing they would like you to speak up or get a little closer there.
My apologies.
Yeah, no.
It's usually the other way, is cut my mic off. So council on May 21st dealt with the rural zoning bylaw. It's been about 6 years in its formulation and brought forward. It was approved by council on the 21st. There's an appeal period. We have received 7 appeals. So what that does is suspend the, subject to verification from the Ontario Land Tribunal, is that the zoning bylaw doesn't pass because whether it's appealed in part or in whole, it's basically suspended. So the rules as they exist now are the way they are going forward, subject to the OLT. The city staff and especially planning are working with the OLT and the appellants to see where we go from here. But yes, hold on to that. Really good thought. It'd be great to get rid of some of these anomalies, which in some cases cause some confusion, but yes.
It is an arduous process.
The slings and arrows of planning.
Other questions of the planner? Mr. Erickson, go ahead.
Back when I first joined, I asked, when is the first approval given? And it was said here in the meeting, I guess the first meeting of last year, was when the foundation is in. Well, when this foundation was put in and the inspector went out to look at it, why didn't the surveyor point it out that the foundation was not where it was supposed to be?
I don't know that anyone here can answer that, perhaps. Mr. Mc.
Through you, your chair, it is a requirement that the surveyor is to come back out on site to measure this foundation to ensure that it is located in the appropriate location as per the proposed lot drainage and grading plan. The timelines for when the surveyor actually comes out is not my knowledge. I have no idea. It is a requirement, though, that we request this, we call it a foundation control certificate. And we request this certificate prior to framing inspection. Does that answer your question?
Mr. Erickson?
Well, was it pointed out then that the foundation was not where it was not actually located where it was supposed to be?
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes, it was the foundation control certificate, or as built, as it states, that it was noticed that this building is not in the appropriate location. And that's why we are here today.
Anything further of the planner? Ms. Richards?
So why then were they allowed to proceed?
Again, I'm not the inspector for this project. I would have to speak with my colleagues on that one.
Yeah, I think we're beyond that now, but I hear you. Yeah. All right. Anything further of the planner? All right. Being none. The only question I have, Mr. Shahid, is just, it has to do with the complainant's comments there. And I see saying that, and the complainant will probably be speaking to this, but it says the homeowners don't have enough room to get into their backyard unless using our property. Are we aware of that situation? Does it exist from our perspective?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, the side yards are sufficient in going through there. I think they mean more so during the construction process that they were going onto their property. But
you're suggesting that may not be an existing situation?
No. All
right. Anything further, partner? All right. Is the applicant here or online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Yes, sir. Your name?
My name is Rick Jablonski with Midtown Technical Services.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
And I'm here to answer any questions. Okay, as we're aware, they did find rock when they did excavate, and that was one of the reasons why they had to shift the building. Going back to some of these questions that you're bantering around, the foundation control certificate is usually issued at the end of the project, and they'll bring the survey. The contractors usually bring the surveyor in when the house is completed, and he does his report and certifies what that elevation is of this for the foundation control certificate, and then it's provided to the building inspection team. And it's my understanding also that the inspector did bring it to their attention, but it was late in the stages of the construction of the home, and that the home was located and not positioned in accordance to zoning. So that's the reason why we're here today, because of the location has been shifted, and obviously the zoning setbacks have been altered, and we are encroaching upon the one side. The other thing there was something mentioned as well about the side yards. There's adequate space to go through the side yards, and really, I don't think there's going to be any heavy equipment or anything going into the rear yard, because that's where the septic system is and the septic tank. So, does anybody have any questions in regards to this property?
All right.
Through the chair, just for the comfort of the neighbor, when is the site work and grading going to be completed so that he has no runoff onto his property?
It's my understanding it is completed at this stage.
All right. Anything further of the applicant? Yeah. All right. Do you wish to speak further to it, sir?
No, but if there are any other questions, then
all right,
I'd be willing to answer them if I can.
All right. Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
All right.
And your name, sir?
I'm Rob Lindsay. I'm the homeowner along with my brother at 89 Folsom Crescent. They are not done the grade work. If the grade work was done, the water wouldn't be running down our laneway. When this place was put in there, there's a ridge in, there's a hill in behind on the property. If you're going to build a house that big and it's going to take up the whole lot, where the water used to run, where's it going to run now? Runs through our property and runs through the neighbor's property. On the weekend with the rain that we had, and there's pictures of that, it clearly shows that that's where the water's running, right through our yard. Our well is right by there. Our well is on the one side. And again, when they were building this, they come in and they disrupted things. People around there can attest to that. They were using our yard to get in and out of their property without permission. They come in, they cleared the hedges and the trees down the one side. Were they on their property? Yes. But the outfall of where the trees and stuff ended up and the cleanup was on our side. On the other side, again, you can see how it's built up. The yard had to get built up for where it's at and to get rid of some of the fill. Well, where's it running to? Right over to our house. So again, there's adequate room. Well, you put a couple propane bottles in along the side of the building, and now that 6 feet that you had, it isn't 6 feet, it's 4 feet. And they're wanting to take their trailers and stuff and put it in the backyard. So do I have to build a fence to keep people out? I shouldn't have to, but it looks like that's what's going to happen. And again, to me, we shouldn't be at this stage right now. This should have been figured out a long time ago. We shouldn't have to be asking for something after we've already done it. The damage is done. The house is where it's at. We're asking for permission now. Why weren't we aware of this before? Why wasn't it brought to our attention that this was going on? We had to get a letter last week saying there's going to be a minor variance. Well, it isn't minor. to the people around there. Because again, this could have been stopped at the beginning. Or not stopped, adjusted, done properly. With us in mind too, not just the builder building the house, building it, selling it, leaving it with a new homeowner with a headache of having to deal with us or the neighbor beside, if it was done right in the first place. That's my concern. And again, yeah, there's a house there right now, and it would be 2 stories if you cut down the grade. So that's what I have to say.
All right, just hang on for a minute, sir. Don't go away. There may be questions, but before I go back to Mr. Dubinsky, Mr. Shahid, you've heard the comments of the gentleman. Do you have any response? Because indicating water is still running on his property, even though we're hearing the grading is completed?
To you, Mr. Chair, no, I don't have any further comments other than what I had previously mentioned, what's in the report.
Mr. Jablonski, do you have any comments with respect to the comments of Mr. Lindsay?
Well, I was told that the grading has been completed, but they I guess they haven't planted or seeded yet, which is a requirement for the final inspection of septic. But I wasn't aware that there was a runoff. Maybe that's something that they could work with the contractor to make sure that they provide proper drainage so that it's not affecting the neighbors. That's a possibility too as well.
All right. Anything further you'd like to add?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
All right. Mr. McKinnon, yeah, go ahead. I was going to...
Through you, your chair. The grading of this property will have to be completed as per the lot drainage and grading plan. And also the Ontario Building Code does state the building shall be located or the building site graded so that water will not accumulate at or near the building and will not adversely affect adjacent properties. And we still have an open permit on this project, so we will actually have to make sure and enforce the Ontario Building Code here.
So I would be in order then. That's a question I was going to have to you. If I advise Mr. Lindsay that as things progress and he observes what's going on, he can certainly contact the building department with respect to concerns he may have. Lindsay, so the grading hasn't been completed as far as the city is concerned, so I would suggest to you that if you have concerns as things move along, that certainly you get a hold of the building department and let them know about your concerns.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. Like you said, this is all, to me, we have a shared laneway now too. So where's the water go between the laneway? It goes across our lane.
All right, well.
And that's a whole nother, that's another whole thing. It just, there could have been a little bit more consultation with us as neighbors before this happened. And it could have been a lot smoother than what it was. It didn't go well.
All right. Well, I think we've opened up an avenue for you to explore with respect to building department, so I'll leave that with you then.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application? In opposition to this application? All right. Being none, committee, and before I do that, Mr. Shahid, I know you indicated that we've amended the conditions. Do you want to just briefly speak to why we went from 24 to 8? It was 24, wasn't it? Yes, it was.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, same as the previous explanations, because the construction of that building has already been completed. So like it's already from that certain distance. So we reduced it down to 8, and this was confirmed. Yeah.
I just wanted on record that was why the change for the, all right. Yes, Ms. Richardson?
Through you, so that 8 months then gives the owner ample time to complete the drainage requirement, et cetera, to the satisfaction of the neighbor and the city?
Perhaps we should ask Mr. McKinnon that. Are you content with the 8 months suggested in the condition with respect to the job you people have to do? Give you enough time?
Through your chair, I think this time should be sufficient.
Okay. Anything? Yes.
Just one question, curiosity. Does the city issue grading certificates in a development such as this, brand new?
Mr. McKinnon?
Through your chair, this is an infill lot, so the grading certificate would not be required.
Anything further from committee? Yep, Mr. Erickson.
Through the chair, the building, the grading certificate is not required, but could they be requested to provide one?
Mr. McKinnon?
Through your chair, that is not a part of our lot range and grading process.
I don't suppose you'd be asking, would you mind submitting a, might have some objection to that. All right, is there anything further from committee? All right, being none, I need a motion as amended, a motion as printed but amended. So can I get that? Mr. Finn? Do I have a seconder, Mr. Strangway? Any further comments or questions with respect to the amended motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? That carries. Your application is approved, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to once again thank staff for clarifying a shady area for us, as they did last week.
Our staff always do an excellent job. Thank you for that. They do. Absolutely. There may be the odd little glitch along the way, but that's called life. But generally speaking, we're very well looked after and matters are very well addressed. All right, where are we? Okay, and we're dealing with file number D20-2024-050, and this is 24 Pigeon Lake Road. Where are we here? Concession 7, well, we won't worry about that then. All right, Mr. Shahid, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property currently contains a one-story dwelling and a shed or garage. The application seeks to remove the existing shed and replace it with a new detached garage. The existing shed, as shown on the slide, is obsolete and is not appropriate for the parking of any vehicle and contains just a dirt floor. As a result, the property owner is seeking an enclosed space to park his vehicle and will remove the current shed entirely from the property. Relief is required from both the rear yard and the exterior side yard. So this area is interesting because the zoning here is predominantly highway commercial, including the subject property. However, the subject property and many of the surrounding properties have long-standing established low-density residential uses. As a result, although the use is residential, the setbacks applied here more typically reflect a commercial property, and commercial properties typically contain greater setbacks to accommodate for traffic, safety, emergency access, loading spaces, and other requirements. This is evident in the rear yard requirement. Generally, residential zones require 2-meter rear yard setback for accessory structures. In this case, the required rear yard is 15 meters. The proposed garage proposes a 9.14 meter rear yard setback, which is substantial. The proposed garage provides adequate green space in the rear yard and does not introduce more structures on the property. Looking at the exterior side yard requirement now, the proposed exterior side yard setback is 3.05 meters. Looking at the image on the slide, it is not obvious that this is an exterior side yard when on site. The property abuts an unopened road allowance that is currently just green space. As a result, the proposed setback will not impede any traffic or road maintenance. In terms of comments, after the writing the report, the supervisor of Part 8 Sewage Systems indicated that they were unable to complete an evaluation of the proposal in time. As a result, a condition has been placed to ensure the proposal achieves compliance to the satisfaction of the supervisor. In terms of public comments, the property owner of 20 Pigeon Lake Road commented that they have no issues with the proposal. And in conclusion, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the revised conditions provided to committee. Thank you.
All right. And are there any questions of the planner? Being none, is the applicant here? Would you like to speak to it, sir? All right. Let's try it this way then. Are there any questions of the applicant? All right. Thank you. Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to this application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? Support of the application? All right, and I guess with respect to the condition amendment, it has to do with the septic, Mr. Shahid. All right. I need a motion, an amended motion. Okay, Mr. Strangway and Mr. Erickson. Any further comments or questions with respect to the amended motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? Okay, and the application is approved. Very good. The application is approved. What? Oh, okay. Anything, Mr. Connolly, anything from staff new or exciting? No?
Through your chair, it's always exciting, always new, a little bit of the old, but
it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
No, but again, I think the most relevant and contemporary in terms of timely is the rural zoning bylaw and what's happening there. And I do appreciate the question. And you know, it's our hope that we can work our way through any of the appeals and move forward, because a lot of work has gone into it from staff, and it would also make the committee's life that much easier as we deal with that consolidation. But I do appreciate the question. 7 in total. They're all worthwhile because they're all of interest to someone who feels that they need to come forward with that. So I think, again, from our perspective, there's some things that hopefully there's a way forward and a fairly smooth one in terms of doing that. That not said, again, we'll work through the OLT and hopefully mediation or arbitration to try and see where that goes. Yeah, thank you.
Anything under other business from, yes, Mr.
I'd just like to take a minute, note that Miss Berry is not here today for the first time, and we received as a committee a very nice note from Miss Berry, and I just wanted to indicate that I hope someone will pass along to her that it was a pleasure, as far as I'm concerned. I think I'm speaking on the rest of the committee, to work with her, and we wish her the very best in her new position, and just a real pleasure to work with that individual, and we wish her all the very best.
And thank you for that, Steve. Actually, I did speak to her, and she, as you well know, I guess it was during COVID, and she carried the entire load on her back because she didn't have planners. So just an incredible job by her. So during that time, I mentioned to her that we couldn't have got along without her. She just did a fantastic job, and and I just spoke to her recently again, and yeah, she's just phenomenal, the job she did. So we really do appreciate it. And I just wanted to carry on from Ms. Richardson's comments and Mr. Strangway's regarding staff. I know we pepper you with a lot of questions, but and some of them are relevant. Perhaps some of mine and others aren't so relevant as it relates to the variance, but you're patient with us, and we do appreciate your help with respect to all of this. And Mr. Connolly, especially today yourself, we really appreciate you taking the time to explain things and got us on the right track there with respect to the perhaps in the future with related diagrams and this sort of thing. So to staff, I say to you, thank you very much for the well done job, and I appreciate that. So anything further from committee? All right, being none. Well, the next meeting will be Thursday, July the 25th, 1 p.m. in Council Chambers, City Hall. And now a motion to adjourn, and I have never lost one of these, so it works very well. Ms. Richard and Ms. Archer, all those in favor, and that carries. Thank you.